For those of you who follow me elsewhere, you might know that this book was originally going to be read on Patreon. I decided that since the rest of the series will be finished there, it makes sense for me to pull that from my read queue anyway. So here's the backstory for why this was on my radar at all. A while ago, I asked on our Books That Feel Like This for, and I quote, POV, your mother sold you to One Direction. Why? Because I have a specific yearning. If you know, you know. And this is one of the series that was recommended. Not only will I be judging this book based off characters and plot, but also how well that I feel that this matches up with my request. Before we begin, I'd like to state that this was apparently written by some YouTuber that I've never heard of before. However, reviews also complained that it wasn't even written by her and was actually ghostwritten, which, okay, I guess we might talk about that more, either down the road or at least at the end of the book, maybe. I don't know. This is not an audiobook. I am once again begging people to please tell me why it is that they clicked on this with the idea that it was an audiobook, because I am so sick and tired of you people coming onto my comments demanding to know why it's not an audiobook, and then somehow getting offended when other people call you out for your lack of reading and listening comprehension. If I had a nickel for every time this happened, I could afford proper recording equipment. Anyway, there are several bonus chapters in this. I made the mistake of counting bonus chapters as regular chapters during my read-through of Funny You Should Ask. I will not be making that same mistake again. Bonus Chapter 1. We open on an unnamed girl grading her first blog post. She explains to the readers that she felt compelled to journal but never really knew what to say. The kind of humdrum stuff that goes on in your day-to-day life hardly makes for interesting reading in her opinion. Yet at the same time, somehow writing about her innermost thoughts to strangers online is somehow better than writing it only for herself in a physical book. Make it make sense. Our unnamed main character then explains to us that it's hard to be a teenage girl, that there's all these expectations society puts onto you. And I'm not saying that she's wrong exactly, but the way that all of this is worded, the entire thing comes off as 30-something woman thinks back to her teenage years. She's trying way too hard to be edgy and also relatable. It's an odd choice, and honestly a little off-putting, I'm not gonna lie. She signs off as a titular girl in line, which isn't exactly clever. Everybody is online. You ain't special, honey. I'm not saying that this would have been better if it was held mopey teenage girl blogs about stuff only she cares about, but it's like the author didn't even try with that username. Especially when she signs off with, I am not kidding. Girl online, going offline. XXX. Chapter 1. This is subtitled with present day, which makes me wonder exactly how much time passed between her posting her first blog post entry and now. Since we don't actually know, this seems a bit silly, honestly. We're introduced to our main character, Penny. She's a high school student and I guess a photographer. She's currently being asked to watch the dress rehearsal for the school's production of Romeo and Juliet and to take pictures of the actors in various poses. Penny complains that the drama professor, Mr. Baconsfield, is one of those cool teachers who tries desperately to be relatable and friends with the students. Personal aside, but I do hate it when teachers do that. I had a couple who were like that. They were so focused on being your friend that they literally forgot to actually teach the material. He's also the reason our version of Romeo and Juliet is set in a Brooklyn ghetto and Juliet is leaning out of a trailer rather than a balcony. So, West Side Story? However, Penny's, BFIS, best friend in school, Megan, loves Mr. Baconsfield because he always gives her the lead roles. I'm giving this book the benefit of the doubt since we're still technically on page 1 here, but it's already on thin ice. She takes some pictures of Megan as Juliet, then they proceed onto the balcony scene. The Romeo Ollie demands that Penny take his picture too. However, Penny insists on putting her foot into her mouth and asks him which is his best side. This is a scene that goes on and it's like, we are literally on page 3. Why are you making us read this? I don't even know you people. Rehearsal eventually ends and Ollie approaches Penny. She randomly starts jumping to the conclusion about why he's doing this, but it's quickly revealed that it's because he wants to see her photos. As she tells him that she'll show him at the restaurant that they're all going to, she then proceeds to trip in a hole. My fingers twitch as the inspiration for a blog post pops into my head. Sometimes it feels as if school is one big play and we're all supposed to perform our set roles all the time. There's that fake deep teenage nonsense all over again. In our real-life play, Ollie isn't supposed to sit next to me. He's supposed to sit next to Megan. They aren't actually dating or anything, but they're both definitely on the same rung of the social ladder, and Megan never falls into holes. Explain it to me like I'm 5 why it is that you're friends with somebody who sees you as beneath her in the social ladder. Mainly because I read garbage like this aimed at vulnerable young girls around this age. They read this and go, well, Penny let Megan do this to her. I guess it's okay if my own friend treats me like garbage too. And those are messages that tend to linger well into adulthood too. Penny then proceeds to show Ollie the pictures. Since they're looking at the pictures, others want to see their photos as well. Megan gets offended when she sees her photo, claiming that shadows make it look like she has a mustache. She tries to fight Penny for the camera, then complains when her nail gets broken in the process. Ow, you've broken my nail! You could have broken my camera! Is that all you care about? Megan glares at me across the table. It's not my fault you took such a terrible photo. Again, this book is only hammering in the idea that as long as she's your friend, you should put up with her treating you like a servant. However, this is apparently a bit of a tipping point for Penny. She insists that she has to go, makes up some funny excuse, and tries to leave. Some of the others insist that she's already ordered a milkshake, so she throws some money onto the table and runs out before she can start crying. Hey, it's not much, but it's something for getting away from a toxic situation. Love my Snark, I also offer book editing services where I bring that same approach to your writing. If you prefer a more traditional approach, I also offer professional book editing services. You can contact me on any of my social media platforms if you have further questions about my editing services, including pricing options. Chapter 2. When Penny gets home, she finds her mother posing in a wedding dress on the stairs. She complains to us that her mother quit acting when she had children, and she and her husband / Penny's dad opened up a wedding planning business. She also specializes in trying on all of the wedding dresses she stocks, which is fine as long as the bride is the exact same size and shape as the mother. It's seriously giving the prom dress shop for mean girls that only carry 3 different sizes. Her father comes in and asks her day was. Penny brushes over it, insisting that her day was good, not wanting to create any more drama. Why would she think that her parents would give a hoot about teenage drama? After confirming what time dinner will be, Penny goes upstairs. On her way up, she passes by her older brother's room. She explains to us that she used to hate hearing his music all the time, but now that he's away at uni, she misses hearing it and enjoys when he's home for the holidays. Then the narration screeches to a halt, not like much is going on, but still, Zoe can describe her bedroom to us. She's a special snowflake main character with a super cool room. We get it, please move on. Now that I'm back home, I finally feel safe to think about what happened at the diner. It's the 3rd time something like this has happened to me now, and I can feel a ball of dread growing in the pit of my stomach. She then, I would say, tells us about the other 2 incidences, but somehow brushes over both of them without explaining what this is. Is it being a social pariah? Is it fighting with her friend? Who knows? Without even pausing to take a breath or to hit the enter key on a new paragraph, Penny then dives into how she and her mom used to make blanket forts when Penny was little. Sierra thought about what that was that she's talking about at the start of the paragraph. Editing is for squares, I guess. At least the author put in a paragraph break to indicate that something else was happening, because her thoughts about blanket forts were quickly interrupted by the boy who lives on the other side of her bedroom knocking to come over. By the way, I mean in a duplex sort of way, not in a creepy guy who lives in her walls sort of way. Penny changes out from her school uniform and into a leopard print onesie, and then she has to explain that her friend next door, Elliot, hates onesies and argues that whoever invented them should be tortured. Alrighty then. And then, because this book keeps stalling out more than learning how to drive stick, she then pauses to explain about how she hates looking at herself in the mirror, immediately followed by describing her appearance in great detail. I was expecting nothing less at this point. However, she can't help but compare her rather ordinary looks to the model-like looks of both Ollie and Megan. She hears Elliot downstairs talking with her mom at the door and explains to the readers that his parents are lawyers and are too busy to be around much for their kid. When he came out to them, his dad actually said, "Don't worry, son, I'm sure it's just a phase. Like, being gay is something you can grow out of." Wow, don't be shy, tell your kid how you really feel. When Elliot comes upstairs, he can sense that something is wrong, mainly because she's wearing her onesie. I had one of those weird panic things again. Girl, you mean a panic attack? Even in 2014, when this book was first published, those were already a well-known thing. She tells her actual friend what happened. Elliot scoffs and asks why she insists on hanging out with Megan and Ollie. Yes! Thank you! The bar is on the ground and she's complaining that she keeps tripping over it. You were creating your own problems, then whining about it. He then encourages her to blog about her problems, since he's the only one who knows about her blog. About 6 months ago, I blogged about falling headfirst into the wheelie bin, and my followers went up from 202 to just under 1,000 in a week. I've never had so many shares or comments. It turns out I'm definitely not the only teenage girl born with a clumsy gene. I don't think that the author really understands how little that people care about the day-to-day life of some random girl on the internet. Why did her followers increase close to 400% from a dumb journal entry? That is literally an insane follower jump. Bonus Chapter 2. Penny opens up her blog post by thanking the people for following her. Now, it's never been established where she's posting any of this. Is it LiveJournal? Is it some other anonymous forum? Most of this kind of stuff doesn't even exist in the context the author is thinking of, especially not in 2026. Maybe back in 2014 when this book came out, but even then, sites like LiveJournal were being overrun by bots. I know I left the site a few years before that, and the bad bot problem was one of the things that pushed me out the door. She goes on to say that she's now got over 5,000 followers. I'm gonna hold your hand when I tell you this. Most of them are probably bots. Unless you're getting roughly 5,000 comments per post, most of them are bots. It's a scam. That and the fact that the author is clearly overestimating how much your average netizen cares about the drama of some random 16-ish year old girl from the UK, which I'm sure is what actually happened with the writing here. This isn't even TikTok, it's in the format of LiveJournal. Anyway, Penny goes on to describe the car accident she was in a while ago, about how it was pouring rain, some guy cut them off and the car flipped over. She was calling to her parents from the back where she was trapped and they were calling to her. Nobody died, but still, it was obviously super traumatic. And now everything is pretty much back to normal. My parents don't really talk about the accident anymore, and we have a brand new non-mangled car sitting in the driveway. Everyone keeps saying to me, "You're so lucky you didn't get hurt." And I am, I know that. But the thing is, even I didn't get any cuts and bruises on the outside. It feels as if something inside of me has broken. Forget giving your daughter into therapy following a super traumatic event, I guess. Tell her that she should be grateful to be alive and to stop sniveling about it. Keep in mind this is going to paint my opinion of anything her parents do from here on out, that if they can so casually dismiss her obvious signs of PTSD, they're clearly not going to give a shit in regards towards what I'm going to go ahead and presume will be a toxic abusive relationship. The love interest hasn't even been introduced yet, and I'm already clocking it because this is what I signed up for. Anyway, she goes on to describe a panic attack without somehow using the word panic, but somehow 100% missing the point. Again, even in 2014, panic attack was pretty widely known about. For the author to dismiss the idea simply because she doesn't have words for it is weird, and then for at least one editor to let this go, and for the publisher to send this off to market like this, it's beyond terrible. Everything about this book is simply one bad decision after another. Ugh. If you're interested in reading my own stories, you can purchase my spicy short stories as well as 2 full-length novels on Amazon. I also frequently run flash sales on my stories. If you're not already following me on Reddit, I recommend doing so to stay updated on when I offer free content. Reddit is currently the only place where I'm advertising myself these days. Chapter 3. In the morning, Penny wakes up and tells her readers she feels a lot better after having vented her feelings into the void of the internet, but that she was so sleepy after that she went straight to bed. She still hasn't checked on her stats or seen if there were any new comments. The narration then screeches to a halt so that it can tell the readers that her room is so full of photos tucked into the wall that she's already run out of room. And now, I don't mind this if this was the only thing that we were given, but it goes on to describe the individual photos as if telling us about them is somehow going to be central to the plot. She then checks her phone and is slammed with notifications from people responding to her blog post late last night. Again, kind of feel like the author has no idea how stuff like this works. Yes, she might get a few sympathetic comments about a post like that, but mainly it's like nobody cares about the day-to-day stuff that sounds like she's mainly posting about. However, despite how much of this book revolves around her blog, it sure doesn't actually focus on anything in particular about her posts. It does point out the phrase panic attack, which makes her not knowing it seem even more bizarre. Well, at least it's on her radar now and she promises to look into it. But rather than to actually do that right now, she has to go downstairs to family breakfast, which we see in great detail. I 100% promise you that this is also going to be on the test later, so make sure that you note that Elliot takes his eggs scrambled. While they eat, she and Elliot make plans to go to the arcade, which they do. Then way too much time is spent with them playing video games. And it's one of those things where I don't mind if the author occasionally stops the plot to give the characters a bit of downtime, but we're also 3 chapters in and it's like, what plot? Literally nothing has been happening. You can't bring the plot to a screeching halt when it doesn't even exist in the first place. After they finish playing video games, they go walking around and look at some of the random shops. As they go, Elliot offers up random factoids because the author has decided that he's quirky like that. Ugh, I do not miss when that was a writing trend. As they're going, Penny gets a text from Megan asking if they're still on for a sleepover that night. When she tells Elliot about her plans with Megan, he complains that they're in year 11, the implication being that they're too old for that. However, he's mainly angry that it means he can't hang out with Penny and has to spend time with his parents, but he can't stay too mad at her. Shall we pop into TikTok for a hot chocolate? I asked. I still have half an hour before I have to be at the shop. Or shall the moon rise tonight? Elliot says theatrically. I don't know, dude. I seriously don't know what time of the year it is, let alone what cycle that the moon is in. What an odd thing to say. They go into a bakery where Elliot gets distracted looking at the new flavors of cupcakes. As he goes over to get them some, Ollie and a random boy, Sebastian, show up. Rumor has it he once told Andy Murray he ought to work harder on his backhand. I don't know who Andy Murray is, and it's a little weird that the author chucked this into the novel like this. Okay, so I looked him up, and he is a famous tennis player, but at the same time, why does the author randomly assume that we know jack about tennis? Sebastian asks Ollie what he wants and then gets angry at Ollie and embarrasses him when Ollie asks for a milkshake. Ugh, what an amazing guy. Now alone, Ollie says that it's funny that he ran into Penny there since he'd asked Megan for Penny's number. He says he wants to have lunch with her tomorrow. In a panic over a cute guy asking her out, Penny pinches herself, which causes her to yelp at in pain. She then insists that she was bitten by something, but the first thing that pops into her head that could have bitten her was a flea, which she immediately tries to backtrack from. Then she shifts in her seat, which makes the chair make a farting noise. Hey man, we've all been there. However, despite her insistence that it was a chair, it's obvious that Ollie thinks that she's a gassy, unwashed woman with a bug problem. There's writing awkward, and then they're trying so hard to write awkward that it quickly goes around into the unintentionally hilarious. I can't take this scene seriously since the author has put way more effort into the scene than I think this entire book probably deserves. Was literally any of this necessary other than to further hammer in that Penny is a socially awkward writer who can't get a date? In a panic, Penny insists that she has to get to work. On her way out, she trips over her scarf, crashes into some poor guy, and sends cutlery and pastries flying everywhere. She grabs Elliot and drags him from the shop in her embarrassment. Gotta hammer in that socially awkward stuff super well, I guess. Patreon has recently introduced free memberships. By joining, you'll be able to enjoy the same content I post on Tumblr, now conveniently available on Patreon. Patreon supporters can enjoy even more book snarks starting at only $1 a month. Plus, Patreon now offers a 1-week free trial. Don't miss it! Big shout out to Phoebe for supporting me on Patreon already. If you want to hear your name in my video next week, either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Chapter 4. As you might imagine, Penny will not let the entire thing go even hours later, and I get that it's embarrassing, but holding on to it isn't going to help. Anyways, you might have already guessed, but Penny works at her mom's wedding shop. At the moment, it's Downton Abbey themed, so the bridal mannequin in the window is wearing a white ruffled long-sleeve dress with a collar so high it looks more like a blouse. The collar wouldn't make it look like a blouse, the waistline would. Get your fashion facts straight. Penny goes around and does shop things for a bit. Then this American couple comes in and asks if they'll do an international wedding, obviously meaning in the States. However, it's not simply an international wedding that has yet to be planned, but a Christmas wedding in about a week, so no pressure or anything. Also, they're on holiday in the UK a week before the wedding, rather than, to actually plan their wedding. Makes sense to me, but it's cool because the venue was already booked and everything. They didn't mention anything about floors, catering, music, the priest, so I'm going to randomly go ahead and say that with about a week left, they're too busy going abroad to actually plan their own wedding. The couple seems destined for disaster and they haven't even said their I do's yet. Penny obviously has no idea if her mom would be up for something like that, so she takes down their info and promises that her mom will be in touch with them later. When Penny gets home, she's accosted by her dad, demanding that he tell her a dad joke. Since I had to read this, so do you. Why did the chicken cross the road, roll in mud, and cross the road again? Because he was a dirty double crosser. Yeah, take that one back to the drawing board and try again, author. Anyway, her dad and brother ask her shift was. She tells them about the couple she met, about their wedding planner running off with somebody else's bride, which I have to admit is a good gossip and pretty funny. But them joking about it brings the mom out, and Penny tells her mom about the couple. The mom is pretty taken with the idea of a wedding in the Waldorf Astoria, and I get that maybe it's a nice venue for a wedding, but it's also across the pond and in about a week. I want to emphasize that this wedding is in about a week, because I feel like everybody else has lost the freaking plot, including the author. This is interrupted by Elliot texting Penny, complaining that his dad is harassing him to find a girlfriend. Since he's so flamboyantly gay, it's frustrating to him that he needs to spell it out for his parents. She tells him to get his parents nice chocolates when he finally breaks the news to them. Can't wait to deep dive into their homophobia. Then Penny gets a text from Ollie asking her to meet him for lunch tomorrow. Even though she embarrassed herself so much, he still asked her out. However, I feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop with him. Thanks for watching. New Book Snarks videos go live every Monday with occasional extras during the week. Your support means so much, even if it's not financial. Watching my videos, subscribing, and liking and sharing them with friends all go a long way in helping my channel grow. If you've already caught up with all my videos, you can go to Facebook, WordPress, Tumblr, or free on Patreon for my main Book Snarks, always free and updated every morning. Linktree for everything is posted below. See you next week, guys!